Hey community group leaders, Pastor Jake here with another training for you guys as hospitality leaders for Christian community at the Ransom. We're working through these trainings every month talking about how leading a community group is a lot like gardening. And there's a lot of characteristics to cultivating a really great garden that lines up perfectly with what our roles are as community group leaders. And this month's little tidbit, little training segment is all on how gardening requires intentionality. Intentionality. While there's a lot of things to gardening that's outside of our control, like weather and soil composition and just how the whole process of growth works, there's still a lot of stuff that we are responsible to do. Like we have to be intentional to go out and till the dirt. We have to pull the weeds. We have to water it when it's exceptionally dry. We have to make sure that we get rid of any bugs or any other things that want to go in and infest the crops and the harvest and all of that stuff. There is so much intentionality required of gardening, so much so that depending how well you want to do it, gardening could be its own full-time job in and of itself. And if it weren't for the dedication and the intentionality of going out and taking care of your garden, then it's very likely that it could not produce the results that you wanted. To have the best garden, you have to be intentional. And the exact same thing comes down to our community groups. If you want to have a really great community group, it often boils down to intentionality, but that's a pretty broad concept for leading any kind of a community group. Like obviously you need to be intentional, but I think it ultimately boils down to communication. That's our key word for this training. Communication, because when people sign up for your group, you got to communicate with them. If you want people to show up, you have to continually communicate. If you want to reach out to the people who haven't been there for a little while, you have to communicate. So much of the healthiest groups often boil down to how much you communicate, whether that's sending a weekly email, whether that's using a Facebook message or another messaging app to keep everybody in there, reaching out to people who haven't been there in a little while or just to check in. Like, we gotta be consistent with our communication. And there's no rhyme or reason to how you communicate, whether it's phone calls, emails, or even carrier pigeon. Like, we have to be intentional to reach out to those people. And we can't just assume that they're gonna know what to do, especially after they sign up. Probably the most key part of our communication and fostering a healthy community group is whenever we get the email notification that someone has been added or joined our group. We gotta reach out to that person, we gotta access their contact information in your group on CCB or Church Community Builder. If you don't know what that is, send me an email and I can make sure that we get that all settled and taken care of. But we want to make sure those people get followed up with as quickly as possible. So again, I'm going to beat this like a dead horse. Communicate, communicate, communicate. If you want to foster a healthy community group, you have to be intentional with your communication.